He's the past one, so he'll call it to order.
Order on the budget committee.
Okay.
I nominate Val Scove as chairman of the budget committee.
Second.
Don't be in such a hurry.
Are there any more nominations? They're closed. All in favor? Looks like it's unanimous to me.
Okay. Thank you for your confidence.
Will we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Sorry, Abden.
That's all right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did that backwards.
And I think Julie has a presentation to make.
Yeah, in a minute.
Go ahead, you can do it. Mine will.
Go over there.
You're fine.
Yeah, we got him. Here we go.
My head's not better, so I'm assuming we're good.
That. We're working on it. Look. You can kind of see that, right? I tried to liven it up because I used the same thing twice. So this is a totally new one.
Sorry, Julie, is the camera on?
Yes,
Good, thank you.
that's okay. I don't need it to show that because this can be put on the website. Thank you all for coming. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Budget, budget, budget. And we're very happy because, as you know, you got your budgets on the 14th. We made our date, so that was an exciting time. And you've all seen this before, but I'll go over it again.
That's a little bit much
Right.
in my eyes.
Sorry. What is a budget? The primary purpose of the budget is to provide an orderly system of financial control. Although the main focus of budgeting is on setting appropriations, there is a revenue aspect of the budget as well, and the revenues are used to support spending. The difference between total appropriations and revenues represents the amount to be raised through taxation. Adoption of the budget constitutes the legal authorization to levy taxes and to spend funds. The municipality collects taxes for the school boards, local and regional, and all taxes, special districts, as well as municipal taxes. And the budget is a management and planning tool. And it does set your objectives, so that's really what you're doing in setting which ones are of high priority. And it serves as a plan for how the monies that come into the town will be spent to operate it. The difference between a sustainable budget and a balanced budget, a budget that is balanced isn't always one representing a healthy spending plan. At the most basic level, a practical operating budget is one where normally occurring revenues are equal to your normally occurring expenditures, and I will tell you right now that doesn't happen often. A sustainable, and I think that's what we've tried to do, I think that's what has happened in the past in Waldoboro was you had a spending plan, then things were cut drastically, and now we're kind of getting back to where that level was. If you look and go back to 2013, 2012, you'll see where that big cut in spending came in, and now we're just getting back to where we can provide a lot of the same services that we had in the past. The only thing I want to also caution you on is using our reserves. It sounds easy, but it's not a good way to balance a budget. But I think you guys have heard me preach that now this is the third time, so I think you're pretty good on it. How large is the proposed budget? We went over $5 million this year. It's $5,164,237. You can see it in the front of your book. Basically give you an outline of where that money is going. Obviously, public safety is the largest, and that's also who uses the most services. So that's one of the reasons. Changes in salaries and benefits. Salaries and wages increased 101,754, and benefits increased overall 13,846. So if you will recall, last year, we had contractual employees that we negotiated with. Specifically for the police department, they were budgeted a wage adjustment pursuant to the contract. And when we negotiated that, the reason being, we wanted to attract and retain qualified officers. So we did that, phased that in over 4 years. So just so you remember that, that's why there's such a large increase in that department. So when John sits and talks to you, it won't be the first time you're hearing it. It also included the additional officer approved last year at a prorated salary. Contractual employees' wage increase under the negotiated contract for Public Works was 3%. And it should be noted that any budget line item for salaries that are not governed by contract are for planning purposes, and although budgeted for, are subject to a performance review and are at the discretion currently of the town manager. Budgeted amounts for non-contract employees, you may see an increase up to 3%. In certain circumstances, a wage adjustment / merit increase has been recommended by the town manager, and when we go over those budgets, I will let you know. The increase for health insurance this year was 7%, but when you see the health insurance line items, you're gonna see more than 7%. Some of those include if something changed in a family situation. So some may have had a family and they went down to husband and wife because the kids are gone or the kids came on. So that could also account for it. Overall expenditures are up 204,820. Capital expenditures rose by just over 29,000. Debt service saw a decrease this year, which was a good thing. Equipment, including rental and maintenance, increased almost 30,000. A third of that relates to IT maintenance and website maintenance. Another third is for budget increases for gas and diesel fuel at $3 per gallon because we do not know what the future holds. And the other approximately $10,000 is for equipment for departments. Utilities increased by almost 15,000, and that includes fuel oil. Now, Peg and I, being the watchdogs that we are, noticed that we got a little alert that the fuel oil was coming down. So what we had originally budgeted at $3 is now at $2.08. So you will see we can decrease those line items. But at the time we put your book together, we weren't sure what it was doing. Now we could lock in at 208, so that's a big savings. And here's our police department, and I took pictures of some of the things that they're doing. Their overall budget increased 73,356. 67,000 of that is increase in personnel costs, and John will go over that. And again, believe me, the negotiated contract, that's a big part of it. Again, that's where you'll see your health insurance with obligations because the status changes. And then we also have a cost for part-time and overtime. And I just want to say for the police budget, if you'll recall, especially those who have been here for several cycles, that was always a bone of contention because we never budgeted overtime that we spent. You know, it was always lowballed and then we'd go over. And we've really tried to change how that is budgeted. So John's done a great job of making sure what he budgets is actually defendable and can be substantiated by the numbers. So just be aware, we're still on that curve of where we're trying to get it to the right number. But you can't underestimate it for years, overexpend it, and then taking it up all in 1 year, as we found out in 17 and 18, doesn't really work well. EMS, overall budget increased 71,207. About 55.5 of the increases in personnel costs. It includes a $13,000 increase in overtime, and that is to kind of help to cover shifts that aren't covered when they have to call somebody in. And I am sure I'm stealing thunder from Richard, but he'll go over everything with why he needs what he needs. And and that'll be good. Changes in expenditures in operating and fire. The fire department has an increase of about 7,000. 2876 is for personnel costs, and 4,100 is increased operating expenses. And that includes an increase to vehicle maintenance expenditures and ladder testing. And I just want to point out, we received monies from the King Foundation for turnout gear, and we are now regularly applying for grants for the fire department. And I just want to give a shout out to Max, our town planner, who is excellent at that and has really flourished. I think he's one of Paul's favorite people now. So that's pretty good. Public Works has an overall increase of 18,000. About 7,300 of that is wages due to the contract, and the rise in operating costs would be for, again, the gas and diesel that we don't lock in right now. Well, I guess we've never locked in, so we have to look at that. That's one of the things Peg and I want to do. The administration budget overall has an increase of about 22,000. That includes an additional part-time staff member for the finance department, also a much-needed wage adjustment for the finance director, and my administrative assistant, and I'll go over that when we get to those my department. And the operating increases, again, I just want to point out, website, IT services, and a web-based update to our Trio accounting software. And this also includes our CEO and our contract with McKed, which is how we get our planner. The CEO is shared with Damariscotta. McKed provides Max. And I just want to give you an idea. Max has already written and received grant funding that exceeds what we pay him. So he's well worth it. And I think that's something that has to be said. You know, it was a little out of the box thinking, and a lot of people were a little nervous about it, but it has worked fabulously. He's a great individual. Community services rose about $12,000. The recreation increase was about $5,500. That's increased employee expenses, and it also includes funding for a new ice rink liner. So everybody's kind of assuming everything's moving forward with the ice rink, and there's a great community page, but we haven't even purchased the liner yet. And the cost of fuel oil and electricity for Friendship Street School increased $6,700. And I will tell you, Peg and I went over this with a fine-tooth comb because the change in the fuel oil for Friendship Street School was significant. And we researched it, and again, that will go down now that we have new numbers, but it's still something that's an issue we need to be aware of. Transfer station rose almost 11% this year just for Waldoboro, so it did the same for Friendship and for Cushing. In part, increased tipping fees per the agreement, and transportation costs have been factored in. There's also an increase in salaries based on the contract, and also an increase in minimum wage. And it also provides more hours for a part-time position. So that's the highlights of that, and when we see John in the coming meetings, he will explain all of that. And then I just want to say thank you to the department heads who worked diligently to complete their budgets on time. I have to tell you, there was a lot of not happy department heads with me when I said I need that budget in December. But I think that they all worked through it well. And I also want to say a big thank you to Peg and Tanya Blodgett. They were very helpful getting the budget out, as always. And we did it on time this year. So I really want to say thank you to everybody. I hope it made a lot of sense and it gave you time to talk and, well, review it. I know I got a lot of great questions from people. Some people came in and some people sent me emails. And some people sent me a lot of emails.
Daily.
I was beginning to think that Billy lived in my head, which was scary, very scary.
Feelings mutual.
Yeah. But I think it was good to get it out early, that we had time to digest it. So that's what I thought. And just so you were aware, we do have all the emergency services, department heads here tonight. They all wanted to come first. So, I call them the Lash Boys because Paul Smeltzer has become an adopted Lash. So the Lash Boys are all present and accounted for, and I believe the order was police, EMS, and then fire.
Actually, EMS, police, and then fire. But you're happy to change it if you want to.
Oh, what did it say?
You said EMS, police,
EMS, police, and fire. Whoever wants to go first, but it serves at the pleasure of the chair. They're all here.
EMS is on page 13 of your booklet.
Oh, I think police was,
No, police
See
is
ya.
going first.
police is gonna
EMS.
go. I guess John's gonna go first.
Oh, okay. Son's prerogative.
So I'm gonna
So that's
start
page
off.
18.
Okay. I'm gonna start off and just say, John's been here, John, a little over a year, correct, as chief? And, he has done an awesome job in the police department. Has done an awesome job hiring good fits for the community. They're out and about in the community. People are happy, we're getting compliments. And I just want to say thank you publicly for your hard work and all of your service, and it is an absolute pleasure to work with you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Good evening. So I brought gifts to bribe you all with. So I've got a little Back to Blue support the Waldorf Police Department thin blue line on a main silhouette. So if you'd like one, feel free. I know the guys would love to see them on people's cars. I know they're supported. So Julie gave you a real good introduction to my budget. Most of my increases are all based on the union contract, the contractual raises. And I will say that that has helped because we are the only department that I know of in this area who, one, has added an officer and has all their positions full. We're at full complement. I've got people calling me weekly saying, hey, how are you recruiting your guys? Getting our pay where everybody else was a huge factor in getting these guys and getting good qualified people. The team I have now is really strong, and it's because of these raises, and I was fully behind these raises unapologetically. So that's where most of the stuff comes in. The only other one I had to go up on was part-time, and I would like to explain that. So Justin Hills, who is a great reserve officer, service officer, paramedic, he does a lot in the community. He does our Facebook page. He's great to have around. So I agreed to give him one shift a week in order for him to keep his benefits. So he works as a paramedic, shellfish warden, and for us at the PD. And in order to get his hours, I had promised him one shift a week. So that one shift a week takes up that whole $10,000 from last year, and it didn't give me any hours to give my other reserve, who is also another good officer, to keep up his certifications and keep sharp. So that's why I added the extra money to the part-time employees line. Special details went down a little. I just kind of tried to trim down some of the hours, try to get it a little closer to accurate. Overtime went up once again because the contractual overtime rate went up. Same with the holiday pay and court time.
You'll also note though, just John, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yeah,
but his overtime for this year, if you looked at the 2020 year to date, he's doing well with that, and that's because we've went back to the full complement. So,
And next year I may even be able to narrow that number down a little bit more, but I wanna make sure I got 2 full years to really see. And some of that hasn't come out yet this year because a lot of that overtime is figured for training. I got a bunch of guys coming up for training, so a big chunk of that will all come out at the same time when these guys go to trainings, because I have to cover their shifts when they're at trainings. That will all be overtime. The employee benefits, the reason why that went up was one, because we added that extra officer, and I believe we had an officer who wasn't using insurance that decided he wanted to use our insurance. So that was the increase on the benefits. And when it comes
And you're
to,
also paying a little bit of the shared position. You've got the shellfish position,
Correct.
the benefits are split out between the departments where he works.
and I tried to leave everything else alone, the only thing I had to go up on was, just equipment costs have gone up, like the duty gear stuff, everything goes up. The parts on cars have gone up, so you'll see little increases just on, stuff I can't control, the prices going up.
So this is probably more for Julie than him. On your workers' comp, is that each town individually, or does that go to the state for
State.
individual? Okay, so do they, and this is just because of ignorance, I'm not sure. Is this because if you have a case, then you pay them, or how does that work?
Well, if you're spread out over the pool, so the pool covers, like if you have
Okay, so they have the pool now.
correct.
Okay,
It's pooled.
all right.
But there's a rate for each individual department is a different rate.
Okay.
So
But
it's,
that's a very involved question. They look at the last few years
Years.
of your activity. Certain claims are weighed more than others, whether had some lost time or an injury or somebody was out, so.
I was just
this is-
wondering how the,
Yeah.
how the town did it, because
Yeah.
I've done it myself personally. I'm
Maine
just wondering.
Municipal, it's all through Maine Municipal is where we get our workman's comp.
Thank you.
It's okay. Telephone, utilities went up. We had the prices, we added a line, or we never were paying the correct price last year?
We added, I think we did some phone line, we added a line,
Added a line.
because there was, the workstation with only
That's
the,
right, yep.
the
So,
one.
so we added a line, and the Wi-Fi connections are for the, computers in the
Cruisers.
cars.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so that's why that went up. And it was never, and it wasn't accurately represented last year either. We were over last year because we. So that's a truer representation of what it was last year.
And I also want to point out with Justin taking that Wednesday night shift, that has actually cost savings when you look at it because you have a special taking that shift rather than a regular officer. So that shift was a Wednesday, that Wednesday shift had caused us a lot of overtime use in the past.
Right, correct.
I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. It's beneficial to us too, not just the employee.
I think everything else is pretty much the same from last year. Anybody wants to start hitting me with a specific question?
John, last year we kind of talked about trying to get a uniform type of weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Have
We're
you
all,
done anything with
yeah,
that?
we just finished qualifying the last guy, we're all on the same weapon system now.
I also want to point out, John and I had a long conversation about putting the car in operating versus capital. He put the car purchase for this year, which will go over capital in the future, but he did put a request in for a car. We thought about, and at first we had it in operating because I wanted to try to, we had sort of talked last year about capital. If it's going to last less than 5 years, it should probably be in operating, and the police cars tend to last less than 5 years. But it just skews the budget so much because it's been in capital for so long as a capital purchase that moving it to operating just really blew their budget out of the water. So we left it in capital where it's been, and we can have further discussion about that. But I think that was one of your capital requests, and
Just phasing out some of the older tasers, getting new tasers, was
Correct.
another part of the capital request.
we'll go over that at another meeting.
I get one more item on the training, education. Last year at this time we spent $19,900, now we're at $434. Just,
Training and education,
yeah. 400,
2070,
430.
2070.
that would be like Criminal
Versus
Justice Academy.
1937 last year. Not a lot of money, but point in time of when the training expense hits, or?
Yeah, so, I'm not seeing her here off the bat, but, no, our trainings, probably, you're asking why we haven't hit that number yet?
Timing.
That's your.
Timing.
Yeah, we just
Spring,
have-
right? Do you do it
Yeah,
in the
we just
spring?
haven't hit all of our trainings yet.
But I don't know, make sure we're not taking training or short-sighting the training.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
The budget to actual training for 19 was budgeted 2440 and actual was 2100.
And so a lot of these, I mean, if you're asking about the trainings, a lot of these trainings are free. The trainings themselves are free. You're gonna see the cost come in the overtime, because the cost to us is filling the shifts when they go away to training. But, a lot of the trainings that I'm sending guys to, I try to find the free ones. Some of these other, these other costs are just, the trainings that we have to do with the academy, and they're usually pretty set in stone. And we probably pay them all at one time, or closer to one time.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions about police department budget?
Yeah.
Good job, chief.
How are you guys doing? What are your performance
We're doing,
statistics and all?
we're doing well, so, we got approved for the new position last year. We didn't hire until late October, so the numbers for the year aren't full complement until about October. But, I can tell you right now, self-initiated traffic stops, all that stuff is up big time. And I'm hearing great stuff from the community, the guys are out doing stuff, the arrests are up. But I also struggle with that too, because if the arrests are up, that also mean, I struggle with going by numbers, only because if we've got a lot of numbers, are we doing our job? But if we get too little numbers, people say, well, you're not doing anything. Well, there's gotta be a fine balance in there somewhere. We're doing enough to keep the numbers down, but we're also doing enough self-initiated stuff, so we're doing things. So, but yeah, I feel that we're doing a great job.
How about like clearing cases, burglaries and stuff like that?
Yeah, we have a pretty, I don't know the percentage right off the bat, we have a pretty high rate. Whenever we do our UCR reports at the end of the year, we're always on that upper tier. And UCR is Unified Crime Reporting, and we're always in that top tier of clearance rates.
What kind of vague percentage is that?
Vague percentage, probably anywhere 60 to 80, that's pretty vague.
Do you feel like it's getting better now that you've got more people?
Absolutely, there's more time for guys to work on stuff. So the shift we added has become a swing shift. They're working from 10 in the morning till 8 at night. So it gives us double coverage from the busiest times, 4 to 8, but it also gives that guy working during the day a guy to answer calls, so he can go out and do more of the investigative stuff. So it really has been helpful. Like I said, I've only got from October till now to really judge. So the 2019 numbers will be skewed because we didn't have them till October. But so between the year, January of this year and January 2021, I'll have a good set of numbers I can pull and go from. We're still in that building phase, but I see difference.
And I can tell you from a town manager standpoint, because the complaints come to our office if people are unhappy. It's been a steady stream of compliments. Even the speeding complaints, and I know we still have speeding in town, but what's great is now I get the speeding complaint, I give it to John. A woman recently told me that it was great because she called, she spoke to an officer, and then within a certain amount of time, she saw a change because they had been sitting in the place that she had said, oh, please sit there. And just, she felt happy. And I get a lot of compliments about how they're out and about just driving. And they're very friendly. it's great to have such a nice compliment. And I actually got a compliment the other day in my office, which was nice, from a select board member who had an experience and decided to share that with me about, they didn't have the experience themselves, but it was a story told to them where our officers did a really great job. And that just makes, it makes the people who were on the committee, to put you in that position of chief, and people are calling you to see how you hire people. It's not only the money, because I can tell you the people that we hired were happy to get a rate that was competitive, but the 3 officers that John has hired, it really meant a lot to them to have him in the leadership role. So you can say it's about money, but you're also a huge part of that decision. And I know you wouldn't say that and pat yourself on the back, but really good hires.
And if I could just mention that I'm involved in law enforcement throughout the state, and as you probably have read in the media, it's very hard to find qualified law enforcement officers to come to communities, especially small towns. They're struggling, and it probably will become a problem for this town, but I think it says something that John has been able to attract people that want to come here and work, and not just John, but the town itself, to support the police department. I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of towns that are really struggling, so we're fortunate in a lot of ways. So, and I haven't heard, not that they would come and tell me, but I haven't heard of any complaints at all.
Yeah, John, there are some areas of town that are a little difficult, where you probably have to make more visits than you might in other areas of town. And I know you've identified them. Are these intractable issues, or are these issues you think we can deal with over the medium to long term? And if we can deal with them, what are the issues?
I don't think how I could put this nicely.
You don't need to.
So, yeah, so we have a specific area in town that we spend a lot of time. Until we have a way of filtering who is allowed to go in and out of there, I think it's gonna attract a certain clientele. And, it's continue to allow these type of people to go up there, and I hate to stereotype, but it's just gonna continue.
I think I know what you're talking about. I might be able to give you some resources. And I guess the question is, I think what John's doing is trying to build a department. He's hiring people, he's hiring good qualified people. What's your plans? I think you've done this to some degree. You're busy doing the community policing aspect of the broken window theory and vandalism and that sort of thing, if you take care of it immediately through Public Works and the police department. Have you taken any initiatives that way? If you have, if you could just tell us about it. Probably, you may not have had a chance yet.
We haven't really had a chance yet. I think in this specific area that would be tough. I think
Drugs are an issue in Waldeboro.
Yes. Yeah, they are.
As in every town.
And I think people are just always gonna put their money into their next fix, and they're never gonna put their money into their properties, they're never gonna put their money into their vehicles. They're looking for that fix, and I don't know how to fix that problem.
Have you been working with Maine Drug Enforcement?
We have. And
So you are working?
yes, and I talk to Jason Pease and Max King every week, and we talk about things. They're having a hard time getting, you know the process. You gotta get somebody to buy, and they're having a hard time getting that stuff. And we're trying to get them info, but we can't make somebody buy for them. And it's frustrating. We've got all the places identified. We know who the players are, but getting a charge to stick is a different thing. But yeah, we are working with them.
It's not easy.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think we need a motion if we're ready to move on this budget. And the motion, I believe, is for 858 for 22. Is there a motion from the select board?
I'll move that we accept the 858 for 22 for the police budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay. Any further discussion by the select board? All in favor?
Okay, we have our first number to go by. Select board has approved $858,422 for police services. Do we have a motion? Second.
Second.
Is someone keeping track of motions and seconds?
Yep, Peg and I, tag teaming it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Shall we vote? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, let's see, did I count myself? I'm doing it. Were you, did you vote yes, or?
8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0.
Okay, next up is EMS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, John.
EMS is page 13.
I have a general question for you.
Yes,
Do we contract our gas?
the gas and diesel,
Yes.
we
What was the
Have-
question?
do we contract it?
We've used Maritime Energy for, are you talking about heating fuel or
No.
diesel?
No, gas and diesel.
We buy diesel in bulk, when we have storage containers at the Public Works garage, and we get a really good rate on that from Maritime. We've used them for years.
Okay, I didn't know if they contracted it.
Do the
Yeah, They don't contract the fuel that I'm aware of, but they do the heating fuel, not the diesel.
Okay, well, I just didn't know if you did the gas too.
They do,
need a
they do
pillow?
the heating oil, for both of them.
Is that just Public Works, or is it just all
EMS
gas?
uses it as well, the
Mhm.
bulk diesel.
Police,
Police doesn't have any diesel needs.
but gas?
Gas is through Irving, and
Okay.
we get a discounted rate for Irving, plus we get the fuel rebate just being exempt from tax.
The part of the issue is you don't, typically, it's easier to dispense the diesel than the gasoline they look at a little differently. If we were to do it at the public works.
I've looked at bids through the CAD, and a lot of the fuel is in different areas where the rates are better, like Cumberland County was better. I've looked at that over the last couple of years, and we end up doing better at Maritime.
I think the county purchases, I'm not sure which fuels, through a co-op of some kind. And I believe the school district does as well.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I figured that. And I was wondering whether it might be interesting to compare prices to see how well we're doing, just for example, with the school district.
We can ask the school.
I'm sure they'll.
And they'd probably let us in on the
Co-op, yeah.
bidding, because it would increase the volumes and maybe give everybody a better price.
Find out.
That's how we get paper, like when we have to buy paper, we go through something that was set up a long time ago through
Yeah.
the school.
We started that when I was business manager of the
I was
school.
gonna say, that was
Yeah.
long ago. I remember that.
Back when you were young John Lott.
Yeah, his hair was black then.
I just wondered if I was gonna get the same accolades as my son got.
Silver Fox, you are wonderful.
So Bob, that is something we can look at.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
it just makes sense.
Yeah,
If you wouldn't mind finding out what their contract says, that would be
I
great.
could do that.
Could you? Because
I'm
you
on
have
the
special
fin-
powers over there.
I'm on the finance committee anyway.
You do. You are.
Great.
Thank you.
good. Yes, sir.
I really have got basically two areas. Number one is in the payroll lines.
I increased our overtime by around 12,000. The reason that we lost the paramedic that we had in one of our full-time positions, and we kind of had the same issues the police departments having as far as EMS personnel. And we've advertised, and I have not had anybody apply for the full-time position. I've had people apply for per diem, but not the full-time position. So she's been gone for a few months now, and so my overtime budget, because we have to still fill those shifts, whether we have with a person. And so some of the full-times have been stepping up to help fill that time. But we also have some of our per diems who, especially when we're busy, also get into overtime on occasion. So I've increased the overtime budget. Hopefully we won't have to use all of that if we can fill that position, which we're trying diligently to do. With that, the other thing is increased wages for staffing, once again, to attract people. Just for example, right now, we pay a paramedic $18.51, and booth pay right now is paying $22 an hour. CLC is paying $20, and Wiscasset's gonna be at about $20 with their next budget cycle. I just talked with their EMS director today. So I've tried to bring that up so that we can attract people. And the other situation we run into, and this reverts back to some of the overtime, is our call volume has been increasing steadily every year. And this year, when we ended out, we was over 100 calls more than where we were last year. And the thing we're finding is where, not in every case, but we seem to be, this is gonna reflect on my supply line, we seem to be getting sicker people. People are holding off, and they're seeing the same thing in the emergency room in the hospital. People wait, hoping that they're gonna get over it or whatever, and when they're coming in, they're a lot sicker. So there's a couple reasons, and this is my other big area, is my supply line is, first of all, Maine Health, and we used to be able to go into the hospitals, swap most of our drugs, we could just swap one for one, and we could just go in and pick up any supplies we used. They had a closet there, we could go in. We can't do that anymore. They have lots of closets, and we have to buy all of our medications now, which has increased my supply line significantly. That's gone up by around, well, roughly 12, no, long,
12,000.
yeah, around 12, yeah. And that's the reason for that. Because we have more call volume, we're using more stuff, and because we've been cut off from the hospitals now, there's no more swapping, so we have to buy. We can still buy stuff through Maine Health, and we get good discounts on our supplies through the ones that we can get from them, through the, over in Damascotta, through the Miles supply building over there. But that's basically the reasons for our increase. Number one, to be competitive, and number two is just supplies. We're getting sicker people, we're using more supplies, and we're getting more call volume. So, and that's pretty much, that's how it is. And, you know.
Richard, are we okay in our relationship? I guess we have relationships with Jefferson and with Friendship.
And
In
Friendship.
fact, I think you have an ambulance down there.
Yes.
Someone available to man it when needed. Are we, at least not losing money on the assistance we provide to those
No.
two communities?
No, they're set up differently right now, because Friendship say they want an ambulance down there. And you was with me, we went to Jefferson and approached them. Jefferson has voted, because CLC covers part of Jefferson, and we cover part of them. But we have a bigger majority of the calls, even though demographically we're about 50-50. We have more of the population. And they have voted, they're gonna put, the selectmen are gonna put it on the town warrant to $7,500 for Waldeboro, above and beyond what we bill for insurance. And they did $3,500 for CLC for a total of $10,500. And,
As of 2 years
Bob
ago.
and I went up and met with them, we had quite a discussion with them.
As of 2 years ago, they were giving us nothing.
That's
No,
right.
And last year, we'd asked for 35, and they wrote us a check for 2,000. And so I thought we had a good conversation with them. I think they understood, they was a little concerned, you know, is this gonna keep going up and up? Well, it's healthcare, so, you know, probably. The other good thing for this year, though, too, is it started January 1st. Medicaid come up with, to the Medicare rates. The legislature put $10 million in for EMS, for ambulance services, to help us, because we was all in the same situation. So to help boost our revenues up for EMS, because they were finally saw the light that it was quite an issue. And to the selectmen, I think I sent you all a report from the Portland Press, an article they had done. Generally, state of Maine, it's about 65% of what you bill is what you'll actually receive. So there's 35% that goes unreceived, I guess is what I'd say. And the other thing we have done just recently is we've going to utilize a collection agency along with our billing agency to see if we can bring in a little more revenue that way. So I guess that's kind of the broad picture of basically, and as far as the revenue, Linda said I could tie this all in together.
You can tie it all in together.
As of the middle of the year, 6-month mark, we was right on target for what our budget was within $1,000.
Page 53.
So,
The revenues for EMS are on page 53.
So I'm going to take this point in time just to tell you how wonderful you are and your staff.
just listen to this, pal. Okay, no, go ahead.
We have an extremely, and we are blessed to have such an extremely talented group of individuals, and they're so diverse. We have a young EMT who's 20, who was on a absolutely difficult call, who I stood in that kitchen and had a 20-minute conversation about a call with him. And I have the Silver Fox. They're just so professional and so good, and they save lives on an almost daily basis. And you know, when you look for heroes, everybody, you know, looks at lots of sports stars or movie stars, but, you know, everyday heroes walk among us, and it's true of the police department. But these guys actually, every day, they can perform miracles, and we are very lucky. We have an incredible staff, and since I've been working with Maine Health, well, Lincoln Health, our reputation in that ER is phenomenal. And to hear that from outside, from other medical professionals, that means a lot to me as a town manager, because you do so much, and not everybody sees it. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew you're very appreciated, and they really are. I mean, it's quite something. And the people that choose to do it, I know we have shortages and people who want to do this for their work, but they really are special. It takes a special person to do what you do.
Geez, you almost made me cry.
I have that ability.
She's good, isn't she?
I'm good. but, you know, I mean, they had a very difficult call. It was in the newspaper. And you know, anytime you're dealing with children in a difficult situation, for those individuals that were at that call, and I gotta give a shout out to Curtis Bramhall, Derek Booker was there.
Al Slagle,
Yeah, Al Schlegel.
Ian Smith.
And Ian Smith. I have to tell you, anytime with a child, it's difficult. They were amazing. And Ian, being a young man, with his level of, his ability to discuss, and handle a situation like that, just, it says wonders about how he's being mentored. And that's a credit to both you and Mike.
Thank you.
And Derek, and Aral, and all the people that mentor him.
Do you folks, for the calls like that, are you involved in a critical incident stress debriefing?
We asked them if they wanted, actually, Knox County called and wanted to know if we wanted to be involved in the debrief. And I asked all my people, and they didn't feel it was necessary, so. I think part of it too is they had a time to talk about it amongst themselves. And as long as they can talk about it, and I think that's helpful, especially to the younger ones, I think that's helpful.
I was listening to the radio, and there was a program on there about emergency calls and percentages, and it seemed, my impression was that a lot of them that you make don't require transporting someone to the hospital. A lot of them are just, you're treating them in place, or maybe the idea was you're allowed now to treat them in place. You don't necessarily have to transport them to the hospital. And you are also eligible under insurance now, at least that's what I heard, to recoup costs for calls like that.
We only recoup on transporting the patient.
Now that's,
I know the city of Scarborough, and that they had a whole different set of criteria. But rate, and Mike maybe can allude to how Medicaid and Medicare funding works. So I'm not quite sure how that works as far when it comes, and a lot of our patients, at least in Waldoboro, are Medicare, Medicaid.
There is a federal movement now
right,
for
okay,
allowing treatment at home.
yep,
And it's going to involve having a nurse practitioner in some format, video or whatever. We will probably never qualify for it, because right now the qualification is you have to have 10,000 transports in your county.
oh, good Lord.
There's 4 transporting services in the county, and we don't come close to that. We come at 6,000 or 7,000.
They set a really high bar, haven't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work. It'd be a lot of work. We do community paramedicine, and we're being reimbursed very modestly from the hospital itself to do it. Home visits, doing point of care, INR testing, and blood draws, and those kind of things. And that's kind of where Maine is going to, once the Medicaid gets behind it, there may be more reimbursement from the state for that.
But I have to guess that we're being hurt to the extent that calls we're making don't end up in transports to the hospital, but in some kind of in-home treatment and care.
I'm going off the top of my head, but of the 1,700 roughly calls we had, just under 600 of them were no transport.
No transport. And
Now, if you're doing it during the day, that crew is there anyway, and so it's not costing you extra.
Right.
Do it at night, then yes, because we're pulling people in at night, the way the pay scale goes, so, yes.
I'm just wondering if there's a way of looking at those numbers and
They're working on it.
refining them. I'm sounding too much like a banker here, and I don't mean to, but
It's okay,
I'm just
Banker Bob.
wondering if,
I suppose we could kidnap them all and transport them anyway.
yeah,
So
Or
it
just
sounds
tell
like
people
this
not
has
to
to
get-
come from a federal down.
okay.
Because Medicaid and Medicare now are not gonna pay
That
for that.
being said, Anthem has gone ahead and said they would do treatment without transport, but Maine hasn't allowed us to participate in that yet. So there may be some people that, if Anthem is their primary, where not a whole lot of people have Anthem primary unless they're family, and the deductibles are so high that, you know, they gotta pay the deductibles before they're gonna start doing that, and that's where people are getting hurt, high deductibles.
But if you did treatments at home, it would be really less expensive for everybody, would it not? You wouldn't have to go to the
Depends on-
emergency room.
Depends on what the treatment is, because if you're doing stitches, you have to be trained for it. If you're doing, you know, you still have to converse with the doctor, so it will take time, and there's a lot to it, but I think it's coming.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
You were discussing the arrangement with Jefferson, and I either can't recall or just never was familiar with the arrangement, how, like the $2,000 check you were talking about, how does that work?
We had no contract with them. What had happened a few years ago, I don't know, how long, 3, 4 years ago?
3.
3. Jefferson was using Delta, and their response times, they could have been coming out of Waterville to come to Jefferson. And so,
Yeah, that's right.
and was CLC always doing the other side? Or did
No.
they start same time?
No, same time.
Yeah, okay. And so CLC took basically, they'd be the west side of that side, and we took this side. And we was gonna try it, see how it worked. And then last year, we asked them for money, and we asked for 35, they sent us 2. The year before that, I think they sent us, 400, 500, 600, something like that, and they sent CLC 300.
And what was that for? Just a retainer fee?
Well,
or
yeah, and,
something?
you know, I'll just give you an example. We get a call for a car accident up at Peasley's, up on Route 17, as part of Jefferson. And so we get unknown injuries. So, and there's a 3-car pileup. So I send 2 ambulances from here. We go all the way up there, but when we get there, nobody's really hurt, so we sign them all off, and we come back. So we don't get anything for that. So it's helped to recoup some of those costs for those extra things that we're doing for them. And that, in a sense, and then what I think Bob and I think they understood is, for us having people sitting here waiting to respond to their emergencies is just important for them as it is for Waldoboro residents and Friendship residents. And so, I think that was a message that could come across to them, that they understood. So it's just, and actually, you know, over time, that's probably gonna have to increase as well. Now, Friendship had a whole different contract, because in 2006, they merged with Waldoboro. And, yeah, it was before my time here, but they come up with this whole formula. So we bill them, I got this whole formula I bill them on, and then any insurance money that comes in comes off the top, and they pay the difference on that. So I've seen them pay as much as $20,000 and $30,000 a year. And I've seen it fluctuates every year.
Because it's based on calls, is that right?
It's a whole formula. It's not just calls. It's based on all kinds of stuff, percentages, and it's not quite so difficult as the school funding formula used to be, but there was. And the other thing Friendship does is they give us $12,000 a year to capital to go towards an ambulance. Because they request that one be stationed in Friendship, and there's 5 or 6 of us that live in Friendship that will respond with that ambulance if we're available. So that's kind of the differences. But, you know, one of the questions they had in Jefferson was, just gonna keep going up? Well, yeah, probably, you know, it's going up for everybody. So probably is, but Jefferson, and they're very pleased with the service up there, just as Friendship is very pleased with the service, so.
So this isn't a contracted amount, it's just,
Yeah, with Friendship, we have a whole separate agreement.
Right.
With Jefferson, we have nothing in writing per se.
okay, so it's just if they feel like.
We're
Well,
helping our-
Richard is very
we're helping-
persuasive.
Yeah.
We're helping our neighbors, and how many of us from Waldeboro travel through Jefferson all
Yeah.
the time?
Sure.
So, you know, we're helping our neighbors, but they also need to help us help them.
Do you think it's, what is it, it's 5,000 this year is what you were asking for?
75.
75. Is that a good figure for your finances, for what you think?
No,
they would-
I would like to get 200,000 of them, and we could break even right here.
Well, yeah, but
No.
as far as being fair, is it,
We're getting there.
yeah.
I'll leave it there, we're getting there.
We're getting there.
It's a process.
It's gonna be a process.
Because they're not used to paying. Delta used to come in for, you know, they would come just for the insurance money. That's what we did the first couple of years, just to see how it was gonna work. But, you know, and, you know, if we could get 100% of what we build, EMS would cost you absolutely nothing in Waldeboro. But it doesn't work that way.
One of the other things we talked about at that meeting, and I think you're very interested in this, is sort of at the back of your mind, and maybe medium to long term, is looking at the region and finding ways of more than just mutual assistance, but centralizing the administrative side of the service and having branches that could then be reached out to in an emergency. And Jefferson, they knew it would cost them a lot more money if that were to be done, but
Yeah.
they didn't dismiss the idea out of hand, did they?
No, I don't, no, they know they need EMS coverage.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's expensive, it's not cheap. Anything in the medical field is not cheap. And I'll tell you, we run I know you look at it, you don't think it's bare bone budget, but we really run tight to the vest here on how we run our service.
How's your transfer, that side of the equation?
Still doing them. The transfers are down a little bit this year. I think.
Transfers are down about, 50, 60. We did about just under 400 of the 1644 incidents we did, just under, which is down.
Yeah. And once again, staffing.
We don't have the staff, we can't send.
Staffing at times, especially at night, has been an issue, so we've had to turn down some. Penn Bay, you know, of course, they went with Northeast a few years ago, and now they're calling us quite consistently, just because Northeast, once again, has a staffing problem, and they can't keep up with it. It's a issue it's all over, I mean, it just spreads. Delta, as big as they are, having staffing issues as well, so.
Are transfers good business-wise, fun?
Yeah, the transfers are usually lucrative. We try the best we can, if it's a Waldeboro or Friendship President, like going from Miles to Portland, we try to go out of our way, if it's one of ours, to make sure that, if we can, that we take one of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the other towns that we compete or compete or work with, do their paramedics, do they have a benefit package like ours?
Just the full-time, 3 full-time ones do. Mike and, well, one position's open right now, and then another paramedic is the only ones that have.
But-
Everybody else is per diem.
No, but he was saying like CLC, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most of the other departments have a lot more full-time employees than we do. Yeah, and pay the full benefit package. Probably CLC has the most full-time, I think, in Lincoln County. But you find a lot of these, any level, is they work multiple jobs. So I have CLC people that work for me, my people, they work for Booth Bay as CLC. So these guys are not just putting in 40, guys and gals, not just putting in 40 hours a week. They may be working 60, 70 hours a week at multiple locations just to make a living.
Wow. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask or add?
I'd
No?
like to kind of know what the What is the thinking behind the not being able to get your medications anymore from the hospital?
Mike,
We can get the medications, we just have to buy them.
You didn't buy them in the past.
We bought them, yes, we did buy medications that we used in the past, not from Miles, but Penn Bay we did. Now, the hospitals can't afford that cost either. And because the costs are going up, you know, a vial of this that probably costs about $1.39 to make goes for $30-40 or more.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna provide for us, especially when we're getting supposedly reimbursed by Medicare and Medicaid.
some of the things I would swap one for one,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a few things we had to buy, but now we have to buy everything.
Do they sell to us at cost?
I-
They do.
We do everything with miles now.
Yeah.
Do we have to buy the Narcan?
We buy quite a lot of that at times.
So we do have to buy it,
Yes.
we have to buy it, that's not a
Yeah.
program that, because of the
No.
issues that
No,
the government
and personally, I used it twice in the last 2 weeks, just me personally, and we got other people that use it, and that's just me.
Did you have a question, Bill?
No, I'm good, Mike just answered it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Could I just say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
Just information. As part of our mutual aid agreement, because we all kind of have to help each other. CLC has 4 trucks, they get busy, so we have to help them sometime. So just so you understand that when they call for mutual aid, we go to Warren, Union, Appleton, Washington, Bristol, South Bristol, part of Newcastle, Damascotta, Bremen, and Noble Barrow. So sometimes we send a truck here down to South Bristol sometimes, because CLC's backed up. But by the same token, if I got a call in North Waldoboro and we have 3 to 4 trucks out, CLC will send somebody over to me. So we all kind of work together. We have to help each other out to cover all the calls.
And CLC is now under the guidance of Nick Bryant, who was one of our, and he still works for us here. So, we really do have a talented group. And they're in good hands now, too.
Actually, all the Lincoln County EMS services have a very good working relationship. All the directors and all the staffing, and say we share a lot of the staffing around to the different.
So the 4% salary increase versus the 7%.
So the 4 versus the 7. So typically, if you have somebody working per diem, you would pay them more because they don't have the benefit. And here, the paramedic would get the same amount as the per diem, plus they're getting a benefit package. And my question to Richard is that the norm? Is that the standard? Because in other positions in the rest of the world, typically if you're a per diem, you're getting a higher hourly rate. If you are salaried, you get a lower rate because you have the health benefits. So that was my question is it standard to do that, or is that a place where, we might not want to have full-time salaried, essentially guaranteed hours, plus a benefits package, also get a 7% increase? That was the question that I had.
But my full-time employees have extra duties assigned to them that the per diems don't, because they're here on a regular basis. That I own them more than I do a per diem. A per diem can call up 15 minutes for a shift and say we're not coming in, so then somebody else has to cover it, and sometimes that's where the overtime comes in. To go from the 4 per 7, if you did the 7, went down to 4, it'd be a savings of $2,240.
It was just a question as to, the benefits package is worth something.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you stick by the 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. But
Peg, do you have anything to weigh in with that on?
Well, I was thinking, but it's a tough one because what I've heard about the staffing concerns is I was wondering if it would be helpful to have another full-time paramedic versus incurring a lot of the part-time costs for what you're dealing with, plus the overtime costs, like we did with the PD. That was my thought.
But we can't hire.
That's what I mean.
I mean, we're looking for them, we can't hire them, right?
Right.
Sharing my thought anyway.
Since I got your attention, another twist to that is why, it's not total, don't take this wrong as a full reason, but it's facilities. And because I don't have enough sleeping space, I have people, if I have 4 people here at night, I have somebody sleeping in this room on a cot, usually somebody sleeping in my office, and then we only have 2 bedrooms. And we don't have a day room, we really have they have to sit in the office in there if they got some downtime. So, yeah, it's a lot of people sleep in that chair that he's in the office. So, a little bit of the problem, it's not just pay, but it's just the facilities we have here is not conducive to, if you go to Booth Bay and see the Taj Mahal they have down there, or CLC has a nice facility, and even Wiscasset has a relatively nice area there for their people. So, and I'm not complaining, I mean, this is a very nice building, but it's just doesn't have, you know, what the other places have as far as, because when they come here, some are here for 24 hours, they live here, they bring their bed in, they bring their lunches with it, you know, the dinner
On a
with
good
them.
night, Terry's cooking and it smells really good.
Yeah, Terry does like.
Although we did learn recently, octopus cooked during the day is not a pleasant odor.
My other thought on the salaries is I was just curious if other paramedics get stipends in other businesses, like in Lincoln County. Like I know you assign extra duties for some of your staff.
I don't know what they do in other services.
Oh, okay. That was my only thought.
I know Derek gets $1 more, but he does some supervisory stuff over a regular paramedic.
I was just wondering where we were as far as generous or competitive in that way.
Do you think you'll be able to fill that position next year?
I'm hoping I can fill it for this year's.
Would having a nicer place for them to be able to sleep help somewhat in that effort?
Oh, yeah, that's what I.
And that ties in with what you're doing.
Well, that
with
ties into why we had the
Amanda and Brian
architect, right?
Schweisker, yeah.
Right. So we just so everybody's aware, we had meetings last week. Was it last week or this week? It was last week, with the architect that we hired, a local architect from town, new couple, opened up their business last year here. They just met with all of us, and they're going to give us some advice on how to live better. Not necessarily build add-on, but maybe deal with what we have, or in a good way, talk about how we're going to move forward. So we are addressing those concerns.
And it's issues like, they come out of the shower room and walk into a public hallway. It's, you know, just.
Having used that shower and done that, it is a little bit
Yeah, and we use
disconcerting.
public bathrooms, so they have to go into a public bathroom to brush their teeth, and if they just wanna wash their face, and it's just different than
Yeah.
what the other places do.
It struck me when you talked about the other ambulance services and the amenities they offer and the salaries they pay, and we're all competing with one another,
Yeah.
basically the same pool of people.
Exactly.
On a certain level, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
But do you know what it says about us? It says, just like it does in the police department, people want to work here.
Yeah.
Even though we may not have the best facilities. And I'll tell you, the gentleman who just walked in, Derek Booker, is one of those people who, you know, he lives and breathes Waldeboro EMS. He wants to be here because he wants to be here. And that just says a lot about our leadership, and it says a lot about our community.
Yep.
You missed the whole thing where I was saying you're a hero, just so you know.
Well, Friday, we're interviewing 2 EMTs, and one's from Topsom and one's from Bath, just per diem. But they wanted to come to Waldeboro just because of the reputation. That's why they wanted, coming from that distance, they want, when they have a chance to do a per diem shift, they want to do it someplace like here.
Well, obviously, the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
He's a lot better looking now.
I didn't say
And a
that.
lot rugged.
A lot younger.
And a lot younger.
You're not supposed to say things like
Bill?
that.
Richard, how many, did you say, transfers you turned down for lack of help, roughly?
We log them, but I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head right now.
Can
Would
you
you
give
say,
us
Mike,
that
if you would make a
information
guess?
for
I can-
Thursday?
I can get it for you.
Could you
the
get it
next
for me,
meeting.
Mike? That'd be great.
We have a programmer on our cell phone, so every time a supervisor takes a page, we go in there and take, if we take it, if we don't take it, where it is, we have a little, and then it goes into a Google spreadsheet, so. But
Do you-
I don't have the answer.
Do you also track your mutual aid calls?
That's tracked
That's
in the
tracked
MEFA system, yeah.
I'm guessing Bill is thinking that if we could take those transports, we might get enough extra revenue to.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. What would it, what do you need, Richard? You need what, 2 more people? 1 more
Well,
part-time?
basically, another crew during the day would be quite a big help.
Would that mean another truck?
Another
No.
crew.
Just another crew?
Just another crew. In the summer, July and August, we run a third crew. And sometime, I think it balances out pretty good. It's been helpful to have that third crew in the summer, because that's when the population is up, so that's when we're the busy. So if a transfer comes in and we're on a couple 911 calls, it just gives us more flexibility.
Would it be possible to get those numbers?
Yeah, you got them on a
Of what it
spreadsheet,
would
right?
cost
Yeah, let us work on it.
personnel?
Yeah.
Have we talked this one, have we chewed on it enough, or do we have more to chew on? Do we want to do both the revenue side and the expense side on this vote?
You can. That would make sense.
Would that help? So the expense side, the number we're looking for
883.
is 883,970 for fiscal year 2021. Do I have a motion from the select board?
So moved.
It's on page 15. So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion on that number, 883,970 for EMS?
Can I make a,
Yes, absolutely.
would it be possible to possibly table this until Richard comes back with those figures for another personnel, more personnel? So we don't have to revisit it again?
It's fine with me.
Is that okay with you, Julie?
Doesn't bother me either way.
Okay.
Is that moot though, because you can't fill the positions you're got now?
But we would have a hard job putting on a third crew some days, but with per diem people out there. What do you think, Mike?
I think next year maybe, if we're gonna do that. But we can get the numbers, but I don't know, is it gonna change the budget for this year that we're looking at now?
No.
And is it something that the budget committee would wanna work on over the next year? I'm not quite sure what Bill's asking.
Well, we'd have to look at the revenue
So I'm
side
trying to
and
see what it would take to get you another crew to do more transfers, so you don't have to turn them wide.
And increase your revenues.
And we can do that, but I'm having an awful time filling shifts right now.
Okay. I withdraw my question.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion that's before the select board? Ready to vote? All in favor? 4-0.
Select board has come up with 883,970 for emergency medical service. Do we have a motion on the budget
So
committee?
moved.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? Shall we vote? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. None opposed.
Okay, and we'll do the revenues next.
I think we did them all at once, the revenues, by department last year.
We did.
can do it if you like, but I just,
We did it all at one time. You're right, Peg,
If
we
that's
did.
your pleasure, that's fine with me. Got no
Yes.
axe to grind. Okay. We'll do the revenues when we do the revenues. Thank you, Richard. Fire. Page 16.
In the hot seat. The fire chief, in the hot seat. Get it? I think I'm funny, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah. I basically have two increases. One of them I told you about last year, when I met with you folks. That's in 6070, that's the vehicle maintenance. I've asked for an increase of 3,500 on that line. And then the other one is under professional services in line 4090. That's an increase of $695 with the purchase of the new ladder truck. That has to be annually inspected and tested. That's the cost for the New England Technical Services that comes around and does that.
Can I interrupt you, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, so on line 6030 called equipment maintenance, there should be a $1,600 amount in there where it says 0 under initial.
For 2021?
Yes, under 2021 initial column, 6030 equipment maintenance, should have been 1,600.
1500.
Yes.
That's 1500 pay?
1600.
16. Thank you.
So it makes the total, the bottom line, 177,120. And that was an omission.
What'd she say, one what?
177, 120.
So it's not a negative 1,600.
That should be 0 at the end,
Got you.
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So is there increase in vehicle maintenance, is that for the ladder truck or just?
No,
in
that's
general?
for all the trucks. Engine one is out right now. Because our fleet is older, like I shared with you last year, every year when we send them out for their annual pump service and engine service, it comes back with a list of recommendations, should do. There's the need to do and the should do's. And we keep putting off the should do's until they become need to do's. And it's just come very evident with engine one, with it being out there, things that have been should do's, now all of a sudden become need to do's, and it's a huge bill. And I would much rather be doing these things on an annual basis as they come up, taking with them before they grow into something larger.
Does the ladder truck require special maintenance, or is it?
Nothing more than the others.
Is it just a truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does require special things, there's a ladder on it, but it's stuff that we do and need to deal with.
How is that ladder truck working out?
Wonderful. We're very happy. It's responded not quite to a dozen calls. It was used for actual aerial operations at a house fire in Bremen. And the fire chief down there was kind enough to actually give credit to saving the house to our ladder truck in the newspaper, so that was kind of nice. But it's working out extremely well.
Was you able to reach the water down here on Mill Street?
We were about 10 feet. If the bridge was a little lower, we could have reached it. But one of the benefits, as I shared with you last year, was with this truck, we can work below grade.
Right.
So that, you know, if we can get close enough to it, it has a 107-foot reach. It's not necessarily height, and we had these conversations when we were looking at the purchase. It's not reaching up 107 feet. We can reach out 107 feet. So we parked on the bridge in Mill Street, could go down almost to the water in the river by the rapids.
You did use it for that then?
We didn't use it,
Oh,
we
okay.
tried
They
it.
they trained on it.
Training.
I just want to point out, it's great when you save a house, but the social media uproar of saving the dog from the river got more likes and happiness than saving houses. So thank you for saving the puppy. But that was like the sensation of the week on Facebook and on our Facebook page. It got the most likes. So I'm just amazed, like that's what got everybody, was saving the dog, so.
Question, how's your 911 system working?
Bad question.
Yeah, it is. Personally, it's a bad question.
I don't know, is this the correct forum?
Go ahead.
I wish Chief Lash was here with me too, because he and I serve on a committee and we're both very frustrated. Town manager and I went over and we met with the director, tried to get changes made. Been to the Maine Chiefs Association, tried to get changes made. We're struggling. I'm not sure that in the future, we may be coming to you folks and asking for additional funding so that we can go to another county, possibly for our 911 services. Some of the other chiefs have expressed interest in the area, that if we went, they'd be right behind us, so. We're not happy with it, but we
For
keep
them,
being
is it an equipment issue for them or a personnel issue for them?
Well, can I explain my personal experience? When you call 911 for a fire, I was told I got 5 index cards you have to answer before I could call the call. The chief came, called the fire department, they were back and I was only on the 3rd card. And they wouldn't call out until I finished the 5, quote unquote.
A couple of weeks ago here, one of our folks from Rockland Fire was here visiting, and a fire alarm came across our phone on our I Am Responding. We get notified on our telephones if there's a call. That's how we indicate, it shows on a board in the fire station, we know who's responding. That information came through, and I said to him, do you want to go along with me? We were headed to the Sproul Block. I was sitting at the corner at the intersection in town before our pager went off to tell us that there was a call down there. I was already on scene before they even bothered to tell us that we were there. In another county, in his county, the way it works is they drop the tones, tell you where it is, and then they come back and tell you what's going on. That's what we've asked for, we're not getting it.
Why is that? What's their reasoning?
Swiss Kansas City.
Yeah, well, it's through the county, it's through a county issue. And law enforcement, I mean, we sit at this meeting, like I said, Chief Lash goes too, and we're there with the sheriff, we're there with other EMS people. Everybody's having the same issues.
So just so
The
you know,
index-
I would advocate for you guys, because I know how
The,
frustrating it is.
The cards that she's talking about is an EID system, emergency index system that they come, and it's supposed to standardize it and be able to give you a code and to help you. I think in a big city, it would be useful if you knew which apparatus you're sending to here or there or whatever. It started out with medical, they do it, fire was next, and law enforcement, they tried to do it this year, and the chiefs of police were against it. And so the fire chiefs have asked to be pulled out of it.
Does that have to do with federal guidelines again, because of 9/11 and the updating of emergency response systems nationwide?
I don't wanna speak out of turn. I think somebody had a money-making thing and they got the state to buy into it. Somebody had some index cards to sell and they got everybody to buy on board and went with it. And the chiefs of police got together and organized better than the fire chiefs did, and they got it stopped. Is that your understanding? Is that?
I can't comment.
Is it the same with any 911 call, whether
It
it's
is,
for
but-
fire or emergency, for anything?
It is, but the difference is in how you do it. I want the tones to go off, all right, give me an address, we're coming from home. So it's
Yeah.
gonna take us 5 minutes to get here.
Get
In
here,
that 5
there,
minutes,
yeah.
finish asking your questions, fill out your cards, do whatever you wanna do. But get us started and tell us where we're going, and then give us more information as you get it.
That doesn't sound like it's a very difficult thing to do.
Well, they adamantly told me, we're not even gonna dispatch it till you finish answering my questions. If the chief didn't stop by and see my house on fire and go down personally, because like I said, they were there before I finished the cards.
It's one thing if it's a medical call, and, because having personal experience with this with my mother, or my parents, is that I assume they were paging out the ambulance at the same time, but they're asking what their symptoms were, take aspirin or whatever it might be. But when your house is burning, or you have something like that, to go through 5 cards doesn't make a lot of sense,
An
Without
example,
first owning out the fire.
example of the question was, how many square feet do you have?
What difference does what difference does that make?
Not at this point, you know.
At this point, I've got about 5.
Yeah. Fewer by the minute.
Not at this point.
So why, I mean, why are the fire chiefs getting resistance where apparently the chiefs of police or law enforcement?
That was at the state level. Yeah, they've guns. That was at the state level.
Sorry,
is where it was.
So well, I guess my question is, if you were to call the 911 system at the Augusta RCC or Kennebec County, would they be doing the same
Yes.
thing? So it's not just a local issue.
Correct, but it is a local issue as to at what point they're activating the firemen's pagers.
And
See,
have
in
you,
Knox County, they'll activate the pagers, and they'll get their information on their phone later after they get it all. Here, it's the opposite. They get all their information, we get it on our phone, and then down a few minutes later, our pagers.
so why can't they, what's their reasoning why they can't?
We don't know. Don't know. We're not getting any answers.
You're their customer. I mean, they're your customer, or you're their
Exactly.
customer, I should say.
Exactly. And part of the thing that's frustrating is we can't rely on the telephone as a response thing, because if there's a fender bender, we get notified if somebody has a fender bender in Hannaford parking lot. So I can't be having firemen respond all the time. That isn't a real call. So we're gonna get notified when they're calls that we're not getting paid. So, Kyle Santos has been working on it. He's been following it. Like I said, Julie's been with me over there. Chief Lash is working on it. All the other fire chiefs. There's other towns that have it worse than we do with stuff. Jefferson is, they're really cranked up.
So that is the reason why you're at calls usually before anybody else is, because you've got it on your phone.
It gets on my phone, and a lot of times I'll respond, just like, you know,
Yeah.
these guys might. If it comes on my phone, I'll go, and if it's not there, I'll come back.
How does it get, okay, I guess how does it come on your phone?
As soon as they enter into their computer, into their CAD system.
Over there?
Yep, as soon as they enter in what type of call it is and an address, it activates
I am responding.
our I am responding, or a text message alert that goes out. But before they'll hit the button to send the tone, they'll keep asking the questions. So they'll just keep going down and down and down and down. As soon as they get that address and what type of incident it is, I want them to hit the pager button and then come back and tell us more stuff like.
Makes sense.
I've gone to 911 and I've gone anywhere I know, except for putting it through legislature, to do something about that, because it's definitely not working. And he knows how I feel about that, because it's horrible. Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah.
I just didn't want to take a budget time if that comes with it.
Did you ever get your grant for the fire truck?
We did not get the grant, but I am gonna tell you this, that when we started that process, I thought it was a huge waste of time. I didn't think we had a shot, and we made it to the last round, which was phenomenal. I mean, I'm so proud of Max, that we got that far. I never thought it, Julie will tell you, I said it was a waste of our time.
And
we
that
made it
grant
that
for those vehicles, you have to apply several rounds before you're successful, which I said during the whole truck thing. So the next one, we're just gonna keep applying, because at some point, they're gonna say yes.
Yeah.
And it really does matter how often you've applied. But we are really lucky. I mean, Max got the King grant for us, and he looks at everything.
Yeah, we just got notified of another one we didn't get, but
He tried.
he tried. I mean, I don't know what you guys pay him, but it's not enough. He's phenomenal, what he's done, the time he's put in, and he's good at it.
And I will tell you, we're gonna talk about Max just because he is wonderful. I call him Max a million worth a billion, but this week he's worth $116,000 because that's what he got for Public Works for a truck. But not only is he good at that, but you know, he's young, he loves public service. someday he'll make a good town manager.
Max also has referred things over to the school department in case we qualify for grants. We haven't so far, but he tries.
He tries, he does, and I'll tell you, he is very active and engaged in this community. You know, he is out and about in Waldoboro. Friday nights, odd alewives, you know, walking around downtown, and he really is a very special young man.
So before we pass this budget, did you bring anything to bribe us like the chief did? I mean,
I said if I'd known he was gonna do that, I did have some Christmas candy left over. Run back over and get it, but.
Was always there's always Thursday night, Paul.
There is, I'll bring you all Smokey the Bear pencil.
Any more questions, or?
Just a quick question.
Yes, Will.
How's training going for the guys? They all certified on the ladder truck now, or?
Pretty much, all of them are certified. They've all had their aerial training, the driving part, they're still not. We're doing the driving on 3 parts. And so some of them are checked off on it, some of them aren't. Got a core group that's here all the time and they take it out and practice. And, we've been going around town trying to test different sets, you know, getting used to it.
During that trip that Richard and I took up to Jefferson to talk, we met in their fire department. I didn't know it was a nonprofit. The town funds it, but they raise a lot of the money by themselves. So I asked him how hard it is to get volunteers. And he said, oh, we have no problem at all. And I'm just wondering what they're doing
I will have to.
that maybe we're not. I don't know. Maybe it's just a different kind of community that might have something to do with it. But I was just flabbergasted that they said, well, we got plenty of guys. Should we go up there and start poaching some of them?
Well, we're actually doing pretty well ourselves.
Are we?
So
Okay.
I'm not complaining, I'm
All
pretty
right.
happy with.
I guess I have old information.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good to know.
We currently have 24 on the roster.
Okay.
I'd like to have more, but we have 24, and out of the 24, I would say between 12 and 18 of them are very active.
Great.
I'm sorry I stepped out, but how many people do you have in town during the day?
During the day, we get between 6 and a dozen probably during the day.
Paul,
But right now, we have some that, you know, are recently retired, and we've got some others right now that are between jobs, so they're around a lot, so.
how would you feel, I mean, I understand this might, we have public works guys that belong to fire departments in other towns. Do you have an issue with them running with your department?
Nope. I'd be very happy if we had folks that weren't interested in fighting fire, but like driving big trucks. If they just wanna be a truck driver and a pump operator, we'd be welcome them as well.
With select board?
Do you have a cutoff age?
No.
You can ask.
No, Banker Bob, no.
You can ask Chief Glidden, and I think the answer would be no.
Okay.
You have to drive in reverse, though?
World's best back camera.
Terrible reverse.
Okay, I won't.
we're done.
Any more questions of Paul? Just one more. Engine number 1, is that gonna be something you're gonna be replacing fairly soon down the road, or?
No.
No, okay.
That's not the old.
It's just the maintenance side.
Which makes no sense to me, because that too is gonna get you a fire out quicker.
But I was hoping to do a lot of it this year, because that one turned out to be so much. The others are just gonna get the should-bes done.
Nip it in the bud, yep. So are we ready to vote? Sounds like we are.
Got a new
So
number.
the fire department budget is $177,120, $177,000 and $120. $177,120. Try it over. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There a second? Further discussion? Anybody?
Who seconded on the select board? I
All in
didn't see
favor
your finger.
on the select board? This is for the select board.
Right.
Yep. All in favor? 4-0.
So, the select board has approved $177,120. Motion on the budget committee?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0.
Great. Okay, we're done for the night.
Well, I just need guidance now.
Yeah.
I
So
need
we're
some
meeting again
guidance.
Thursday.
Well, I was just looking at the snow that we are expected to see on Thursday.
3 to 6.
3 to 6. It'll probably be happening while we're here. Does anybody have issues with that?
I ain't scared of snow.
Well, obviously, Public Works can't come in that night. But,
Why they can't drive in the snow?
well, John said he could be here if we would like him here.
Who did you have on the agenda for Thursday?
Public Works and Transfer Station.
Until Tuesday.
Who else would you like?
Well, I mean, you know, I can always go through our stuff. And I want to know who you would like to hear from the community organizations too. LCTV has requested, well, and I will tell you, I had 2 of their directors come in and meet with us to talk about their issues that they've had over the last year, and I think they should at least come and chat with you guys about their issues. Do we need to have the library? I'm just saying, I don't want people to come out and then we don't ask them any questions, because the last 2 years, nobody's asked Kat anything. If there's specific people, the Waldo Theater is asked to come in. And I want to just explain that. Last year, they put in a petition for $5,000, and we gave them, guys gave them $2,500. That should have been placed on the November ballot, but we had a change in clerks, and it didn't get done. So that will go on the ballot this time, so we're in the same exact position we were last year. So next year's budget, if it's approved, would have 5,000. I'm sure this year, the 2,500 is okay. They had a new director, didn't realize the timing of the letters. So Peg does have the latest letter from them for you guys, but I know they would like to come in, so if we could have them and LCTV in the same night.
I'm sure Katharina would like to come in and say some words as well.
If she has to.
If she hasn't in the past, so, I mean, do you,
No, I'm just saying, she,
She's happy.
you know a lot better than I do.
she's happy to, I'm just trying to say, if you're not going to, in the past, we haven't even really acknowledged her other than to say hi. I just don't, if you're comfortable, I want you to tell me who you want to see.
She has been here every year since I can remember, long before, since she's been a director and probably prior to that.
Yep.
The whole board and employees would always come to help support the library. But the last few years, no one has asked
Any
questions. There have been years when,
But it was tough.
there were lots of years when there really was.
I just, if I don't have to bring people out, I'd rather not
The
have.
numbers changed, I didn't.
No.
It's the same.
So it's the
Same
same, so
number.
Yeah.
I don't see,
But they've always done that. Just people wanted to cut it.
Well, I would say library, I don't think we need anybody from the Historical Society, Oktoberfest, you know, they're all, and we do have,
You heard that? Oktoberfest.
why is that funny? Oh.
I don't know.
So LCTV,
Do we want to ask these people out if it's going to be that
no,
kind
I
of
don't
night?
want to, I just wanna make sure who you want, and I'm gonna have all of them on one
Have them
night.
come in, okay.
I don't want to, yeah. Makes sense.
I was gonna have them come in Tuesday night.
That's the other question I wanted to ask,
Oh.
whether we want to meet, if we meet a third time, whether it's Tuesday of next week or Thursday of next week, because we do have a select board meeting on Tuesday, and it could be a longish meeting, given the stuff that's on the agenda. And schedule-wise, we're well
We
within.
can always take off some of that stuff if we need to, I mean, I can put off
We've
the.
been here for almost 2 hours.
No, I know, but I meant we can take off like the personnel, I'm just saying there's stuff on our agenda if, it's up to everybody else.
Yeah.
So Julie, did I hear you right, for the community services, just LCTD?
I-
That was the only thing I wrote down.
You said Waldo Theater wanted to come. right?
And Waldo wanted to come. They actually requested to come.
Yeah.
But that's good that they requested to come. I'm just saying. So it would be those two, okay. So we'll schedule them for not this Thursday, but so do you want to have another meeting on Tuesday?
My preference would be to have one a week from Thursday. And have that third meeting a week from Thursday. But if your schedules are busy that night, then I'm happy to do it all next Tuesday. I just don't know what the convenience factor is, that's all.
And you don't know how long the selectmen meeting is gonna last, right?
Well, usually an hour and a half. We'd like to get out by 7, if we can, or 7:30.
It depends
can
what
start-
Bob's done with my agenda.
We can start at 5. I mean, we could start at 5 o'clock. The select board can start at 5.
Okay, my thought is if it's gonna run over, do we wanna sit and wait until you're done?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll cancel Tuesday and we'll do Thursday and the following Tuesday.
So are we
Are
meeting
you
this
ki-
Thursday?
No.
No.
This Thursday?
We're gonna do this Thursday. Do we wanna do this Thursday?
That's
Yes.
the one you said was a snowstorm.
Right,
Yes, no.
I thought we was canceling that one.
Right. That's the way I was understanding, canceling Thursday.
We're
Right.
canceling Thursday, okay.
Right,
And Tuesday.
And Tuesday.
right.
So a week.
That's what, yeah.
You've got a whole bunch of nights filled in for February for this budget. I mean, you got 6 nights picked out.
I did, because I'm excited.
Good, well then let's,
Because she just likes.
She had
to-
the 4th, the 6th, 11th, 13th, 18th, and 20th.
All of them almost.
Sorry, Peg. I really cramped her style this year.
Okay.
All right, so we're not gonna see your bright shining faces again till next Thursday,
Which is waiting for this Thursday.
13th.
13th, okay.
13th.
Katie, call me.
Okay.
Yes,
And at that time, we'll do LCTV, the Waldo, and we'll do,
You want me to?
do you want Public Works that night?
If Johnny's available.
All right, and then the next Tuesday, if we could, I'd like to do the rest of the budget, which should be relatively easy, and capital.
that's gonna be the,
Capital might take another night too, but, you know, at least it's on the schedule.
so our next budget meeting's on the 13th,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. And then the one after that is on the 18th at 6, which is a Tuesday. And then we're meeting on the 20th if we have to, which is a Thursday.
And if you have,
Just had a thought, that if you're having Johnny, that we might wanna cover his capital that time,
Yes.
just because of this time of year.
well, yeah. And if, as you all know, I wrote in there about his capital.
The 13th, and what was the next date?
You can do, yeah.
13th, 18th?
I'm not gonna let LCTV go on like it did before, like we can't just have, I mean, they're gonna come give you a brief. I will tell everybody to be brief.
So, okay, we're back. All right.
And you say you've heard from them?
758.
Yeah.
Because I emailed them like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they came and saw me. The gentleman that came here last year is gone.
Oh, he is?
Oh, he's gone.
You going, all right?
He's gone. It's, yes, it's horrible. When you hear the story, it's absolutely,
Well, I was on the board for 2 weeks, I quit.
2
Wow.
weeks.
That says a lot.
And that was only because the second was the benefit of the doubt.
so they'll be in. Marva and, forget his name.
Is it Larry?
Larry,
Sideliner?
yes.
Give him a time frame.
Oh, is he a talker?
Sideliner.
Larry said, huh?
10 minutes, okay.
So we got the 13th and the 18th.
13th, 18th, and 20th,
15th, 18th, and 20th.
20th is capital.
if needed.
That's needed.
Any questions, please feel free to contact Peg or I. Thank you, Mike, AV man. Peglet and or I.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Select board's adjourned.
All right, I'm going to.
Budget committee wanna hang around, or?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second
Go anywhere, Steve, right here.
Okay, I don't hear any opposition.
All in favor?
You?
Unanimous.
Well,
Thank
yeah.
you for being
You'd
here.
say,
Didn't do much.
That info you gave about
With your,